Here.
Commissioner Kent,
Here.
Commissioner Trinkle,
Here.
and Chair Abbott.
Here.
As of right now, Brian Martin is absent.
Okay, very good. He often runs in. All right, I'll read the land acknowledgement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. All right, and I see Commissioner Martin has arrived, so he's no longer absent. Good. I think we can move to the approval of the minutes. I don't know if there's a lot to be done on that one. So, approval of the minutes, have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
All right,
I second.
very good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Chan,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Trinkle,
Yes.
and Chair Abbott.
Yes,
Thank you.
all right, and now it is time to open the meeting to public comment. This is for folks who have something to talk about that is not otherwise on the agenda. I see one in the audience. Is there anybody online?
No hands raised online.
I believe you have the floor. When I said that, I didn't mean you trip on it. Have the floor.
Good evening, Commission and staff. I'm Peggy McQuaid, the current mayor of Albany, and I wanted to take a minute of your time tonight to personally say thank you to each of you for your service to our community. It's not always easy to prepare for all the work that you do and to attend these meetings once a month. The Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission is in a very unique position as an advisory body. You have the opportunity to impact everyone in Albany, from the smallest child through seniors. You encourage people to work together, improving their neighborhood spaces through park cleanups. You recently guided the city through the Street Tree Master Plan, ensuring the health of our urban forest and equity in tree planting. You work on the urban forest management on Albany Hill, reducing wildfire risk while protecting wildlife habitat. You give us smiles and you make us feel good. So often recreation is an afterthought. It's nice, but we don't really need it. But we know better, and we understand it is vital to the quality of life and to everyone's health, both mental and physical. So I wish you all success as you continue your work to improve the quality of life in our community. And thank you again for your service.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor McQuaid. Any other comments? No, still no one online?
No one online.
You will then, no, we will close public comment and move on to no presentations. I guess item 5.1, the Thousand Oaks sidewalk reconstruction. Suspect we have a presentation. Well, sadly, tonight you have all the time you need, so knock yourself out.
All right, there we go. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me today. I'm Allison Carrillo, CIP manager with the City of Albany's Public Works Department. And today I want to talk about a project that we've received many requests for over the years. But before I jump into kind of the actual project, I kind of want to frame this discussion. Often when we come to this commission regarding sidewalk work, it's small changes, sometimes bigger when we have to do tree removals. Very rarely do cities that are built out as Albany have opportunities to do this type of streetscape project where we're next to a park, reimagining what a sidewalk looks like. And so I want to kind of bring the audience here into that frame of mind when we're talking about this. We won't be going into great detail about the exact level of every sidewalk piece, about which trees are happening where, because we don't know yet. We're still in very early design. This is not even design, it's conceptual planning. We're trying to find an approach that best balances everybody's needs and wants in the community, both on the Parks Rec and Open Space Commission, the Transportation Commission, the school district, amongst all the other community groups that are out there. With that, I'm just going to jump into the presentation. So the location of this project, it's located on Thousand Oaks Boulevard between Pomona and Carmel Avenue. There you go. The project limits are shown. So the kind of impetus of this project has a lot to do with the incremental improvements that have been done in this area over the last period, including early in the 2000s, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard sidewalk was reconstructed in front of Albany High School, or to the side of Albany High School. There was an extension of the sidewalk on Carmel Avenue in the early 2000s, and then a recent extension as part of the dog park project. And so what that's created is a gap, a legitimate gap here, where we have pedestrian paths of access on all sides and a center path that does not meet ADA requirements. So this existing path is in poor condition. I understand there's some people in the neighborhood. It's impassable for anybody in a wheelchair. We aren't able to repair it any longer. This is in a condition where it's a full rebuild. The path condition has something to do with the root upheaval we're seeing, but also just age. It's just an aging path. And it's highly used for both access to Memorial Park, the public sports fields, and school facilities in all directions. There were prior maintenance attempts in 2007, but they did not last and still need work. Other existing conditions, while it looks like a very wide right-of-way, the fence is actually set back about 10 feet. So the right-of-way itself is a 12-foot right-of-way as it exists. A 12-foot sidewalk within the right-of-way as currently exists. Inside this area, there's a number of trees, irregularly spaced. We have 7 Monterey pines. Those are primarily on the southern side of that area within the parcel. Inside the right-of-way, we see cedars, gum trees, Australian tea trees, and California peppers. Additionally, there are some large gas utility vaults on the eastern end of this utility cabinets that dot the frontage, and there's no storm drains until we hit Pomona. Existing conditions on the roadway are actually quite interesting. The varying, to me as a civil engineer, maybe less so to others, but the street actually narrows next to the high school. So there's a 32-foot wide roadway at the high school side, and it widens out to 36 feet in the area of the actual project. And this will come. There's some discussion about this later, so I just want to bring that up, that it's not a consistent roadway width. We have received complaints about the narrowed roadway between Pomona and Key Route. The existing condition on the sidewalk, it's 3.5 to 4.5 feet wide. 4 feet is the minimum by ADA requirements, and 5 foot is our city standard. 5 feet is what we also need in order to avoid having to have passing space every so often for people under ADA. Now, the connecting sidewalks are very different, and this is, to be fair, is not a sidewalk. It's more like a park path, the existing pathway. But the formal sidewalks to either side range from a 12-foot wide sidewalk with tree wells in front of Albany High School and 5-foot wide curbside sidewalks on the Carmel side. In both cases, the sidewalk is immediately adjacent to parking. So when we're looking at the design and conceptual planning for this project, we're trying to balance out the need to preserve trees or minimize impacts to trees, pedestrian circulation needs, the adjacent public facilities and infrastructure. Some of the things that outside of the trees, which are beautiful and we want to preserve as many as we can within kind of a reasonable outcome. The pedestrian circulation is important for park access, the school access, and also the ball fields and sports. Additionally, we really want to make sure that whatever work we do here is durable and long-lasting. With that, I'll jump into kind of a brief overview of the details of the 3 alternatives that were posted. So alternative 1 is essentially trying to keep the path in its existing condition. It's weaving between trees, but widening it to become a formal sidewalk, concrete sidewalk. While this type of meandering sidewalk is discouraged under ADA, it's not prohibited. And we would be looking at trying to straighten the path out, because right now there's some very sharp turns on it. But it is more challenging for people who need mobility devices. Go back to that. So you can see here I'm representing where the path is located in space with this box in yellow. Alternative number 2, we're looking at something that's more similar to what exists at the 2 connecting sidewalks. What we show in the alternatives is a 12-foot sidewalk. That is to match what the Albany High School version is. And that allows for tree wells on the curbside as well as a planting space behind the property line next to the fence. But it can be narrowed down to 5 feet. And so just a quick view of what it looks like. This is Albany High School, and then Carmel. So the last alternative, what I'm calling alternative 2A, because it really is an expansion of the second alternative rather than a fully new concept, is to look at balancing the width of the sidewalk, excuse me, the width of the sidewalk, and looking at ways to gain a few extra feet because this roadway is a little extra wide in this area. Extra wide, I say that's actually not a very good way to put it. It is wider than the constriction to the west. This wouldn't be restricting it down to 32 feet. And that, again, that's where we're getting the complaints. We're looking at potentially a 2-foot curb adjustment. And what that does is it gives us just a little extra room so that we're getting further away from some of the larger trees next to the fence line. However, doing this option does require more detailed communication with Transportation Commission and community because it's a wider change that impacts kind of more than just the sidewalk to, or the curb to property line area. It does moderately minimize the, sorry, that's not correct. It minimizes reduction in infiltrative areas, incorrect. It moderately increased the amount of pervious area here because we would be moving some of the roadway into part of the sidewalk. And it's similar in cost and scope to alternative 2, assuming a similar sidewalk width. So with that, without getting into great detail on the plans themselves, I just want to go over some of the comparisons. With alternative 1, again, going back to how I started this meeting talking about this is looking to the future, we're looking at placemaking, not a simple repair. If we keep to the existing condition, we're formalizing the more regular path and tree layouts. With alternative 2, it's the best for navigation by people with visual impairments or mobility devices. It keeps your path of travel the most straight. And alternative 2A would have some gentle curves. In terms of the trees, trying to still keep the path in its existing condition, we'd be very close to root flares on a lot of trees. Without going into detailed design, it's hard to tell exactly what the impacts are, but it also maintains irregular spacing and irregular planting spaces for future trees. Alternative 2 is interesting because it allows for trees more moderately sized trees on both sides of the path, because you could potentially have tree wells and planting and trees against the fence. So you could create a kind of a tree-lined walking path. But the tree wells would be small. There'd be 4 foot by 4 foot planting spaces, and overall would have less planting space for trees. And then alternative 2A maintains the largest continuous permeable areas for tree planting. We would have the 10 feet from the property line to the fence, plus an additional amount of room that varies depending on whether there's constrictions that we need to work into. And it relocates the sidewalks away from some of the root flares, especially from the Monterey pines, which are creating most of the upheaval. Lastly, for access, we're looking at wider sidewalks for school zones if we're looking at the alternative 2. And that's typically one of the goals of these types of access projects, is looking at what the local needs are, especially with activities that happen at the high school where you might have a lot of people released at one time. However, the school access is at limited hours, and that may not, balancing that out may not be the highest of priorities. And lastly, with 2A, in terms of access, there's potential minor traffic calming benefits by reducing street widths, and this one we'll talk about a bit more in Transportation Commission. But there's, with narrowing of streets, there is demonstrated psychological changes where you tend to slow down a little bit more. And we see that next to the high school, where you see people slow down as you're approaching the high school block and then speed up as they get out of it. I didn't really talk about it in this presentation, but some of the access improvements that we're looking at include improving some of the crossings at Ramona and potentially Pomona, depending on where we stop the project. Lastly, in terms of infrastructure, street lighting has been a major focus of a lot of the community. And the location of the trees currently greatly interfere with visibility along that path. There's some very densely canopied trees that are planted, and we're weaving between them. With alternative 2, over time, the location of the trees around tree wells may interfere with some lighting, but this is also a street where we have street lights that have double lighting, so it spans a little further in across the sidewalk. So I'm putting that as a may, depending on the size of the canopy and the street tree selected. The last option would not include street trees planted along the curb, and so that one's very unlikely to interfere with sidewalk lighting over time. So trying to keep to high-level considerations here. That ends most of this presentation. I have copied these considerations here, so while we're talking about it, I also have a copy of the 3 different alternatives that we can take a look at. Our recommendation for this meeting was to provide comments and recommend that we proceed with alternative 2A. However, you do not need to make that recommendation. I won't be upset by this. We really do want to have kind of this open conversation and make sure that we're balancing kind of the desires from a Parks, Rec, and Open Space Commission. Thank you.
You don't want to talk more, because plenty of time. You don't want to talk more?
Good.
Yeah? All right. We'll take it back to commission questions. Any quick questions? I think you laid it out very clearly.
So on option 2A, you mentioned that the curb would be moved into the street a little bit, and that it's still listed as the moderate expense. That seems like a big expense, but maybe it's simpler than I thought. There's no interference with the drainage or?
We don't believe so. And in terms of the expense, the reason why it's a moderate expense is in terms of we would not have this 12-foot sidewalk width with that option the way it's laid out here. So it's a 5-foot sidewalk, which is less costly. Alternative 2 already requires that we rebuild the curb and gutter in order to do the work. And so that's it's an expansion with a slight decrease in sidewalk width compared to alternative 2. So it is Alternative 2 is the most costly, simply because the amount of concrete we'd be doing, and likely probably more tree removals as well. But that's alternative 2, where we're matching the school district and Carmel Street aesthetics, the approach. Again, back to 2A, we would be trying to narrow that sidewalk width a little bit more. So the cost would be likely less than alternative 2, but still more than alternative 1.
So 2A, you don't move the curb?
We do. 2A would be moving the curb,
Yeah, okay.
but we would have to rebuild the curb for alternative 2 as well.
So this hasn't gone through traffic, I forget the name of that commission, Transportation Commission, yet, right? Okay. I'm just curious about the width of this street. Would it be like the average, after alternative 2A, if that was implemented, would the width of the street be more typical of what we see in Albany, or smaller, larger than, average Albany street?
So it would be larger than the average residential north-south street, which is about 30 feet. But it would be smaller than the average east-west street in Albany, which are generally our collectors. This street is unusual in Albany. Well, it doesn't continue all the way to San Pablo Avenue, so it serves less as a collector and more as a local access to the street and for general access to residential homes.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, I can't remember. I actually live very close to there, but once you cross Carmel going towards Berkeley, is the street's width the same? It's the same, right? It doesn't narrow at all, does it?
I'm not sure about Berkeley. Some of the streets in this area do narrow significantly once you enter Berkeley, thinking specifically of Washington. But I don't believe the street is any narrower than what's here within Albany along the rest of that corridor.
Because it does feel like a very wide street, and especially without the houses on both sides, right? It almost makes it even wider because there's no clutter, Anyway, so, okay, thank you. That was my main question.
Questions, Brian?
Yeah, I had a few. One was, I don't know if there's a way to do this with an ADA treatment, but is there a way to do, like you see at some national or state parks, like an elevated, just a few inches walkway that goes over all the routes?
Anything is feasible. I would say in terms of our maintenance, and that's actually highly maintenance intensive, would start rotting. We would have a different type of repair program needed for a small section of sidewalk. It's also prone to changing how the kind of tactile surface is. Sometimes wood can get really slippery, especially in the rain, depending on what kind of treatment's on it. So it would just be it would be not a standard sidewalk. That is to say, it's not infeasible. We just haven't looked at that, and from a maintenance and operations, it would not be something I would particularly want to recommend at this point.
Okay. Another question is, has anyone looked at the health of the existing trees to know if any of them are on their last legs and would need to be removed soon anyway?
So I did speak to John Hawkridge, our forester. Some of the cypress are not looking in great condition. They're mature and over mature for some of them. So there's probably a need to look at these trees generally for some maintenance and also planting to get ahead of having to remove them at some point in the future. But I don't have exact information about each tree.
And then is it, so to clarify the impacts to trees and the different scenarios, so first for scenario 1, is it correct to say that number 1 basically avoids the trunks of every tree as it meanders through, but it might get really close to those trunks, which might involve very severe root pruning, which might require removing trees?
I would say we would be going through some trunks as well in order to widen the path to 5 feet and meet our current standards.
Okay. Looking at the street on a street view thing, I'd see there are some trees that are right on the curb, and then several, most are set back a little ways, but,
There's, I believe, 4 trees near the curb. Some of those trees are causing curb damage and causing some local ponding along the gutter. One of the advantages of relocating the curb out is we're giving those trees a little more space if we can preserve them.
if we can preserve them,
If we
okay.
can preserve them.
And then for number 2, is it correct to say that it's going for this really wide sidewalk that's like what's at the school, and with tree wells, and maybe like a 12-foot wide sidewalk, I think you said, maybe, and so that would require removing all the trees and then just planting in the tree wells with new trees?
So that option is assuming a 12-foot wide sidewalk area, 8-foot wide continuous path with 4-foot tree wells, so 12 foot. So we're still not getting to a 12-foot sidewalk. Neither is the school. When I say a 12-foot sidewalk, that's the curb to back of walk, not the actual constricted.
Okay, understood. So, but number 2 would require removing every tree. Is that correct to say?
That
And
would likely remove all the trees if we were to go with that specific plan. What I wanted to, I didn't get into this in great detail, but this was intended to be a range of options. So there's ways to intersperse things. There's ways to make small, minor changes around certain places. But going back to kind of the initial conversation around this being a placemaking, this is a kind of unusual situation where we're not just doing simple repairs, but also we have to look at kind of long-term. This is an alignment that's likely to be around not just through the life of these trees. This alignment might exist past the lifespan of some of these trees.
And then is it correct to say for 2A that that's the one that tries to get more real estate by building into the street, and is that the one that has no tree wells because you're just trying to get enough sidewalk to avoid most of the trees that are there already? Is that the idea?
That's generally the idea. We would try to preserve trees and maximize how much space there is south of the path or the sidewalk. It gives the most continuous space because, again, we have both the remainder of the right-of-way, we have the 10-foot setback to the fence, and then the fence itself is still within past the fence, it's still within a field, and roots can still grow out there. So it really gives some of probably other than a actual park, some of the widest planting areas you can get next to a roadway.
Oh, so that are between the sidewalk and the ball field or something?
Yeah, it would be remain fully open
Yeah.
for future planting.
Okay. And so for, it sounds like, I think you're saying all 3 scenarios would pretty much take out require removal of the 4 trees that are at the curb?
There's room to potentially move around some of them, but I
In
do want
scenario
to,
1?
under scenario 1 and under scenario 2A, we have a narrow sidewalk. But we also want to balance that with some of the considerations that we're seeing with some of the trees have outgrown their space and they are causing roadway damage. And we don't have drainage here, and it's a pretty flat street, so some of what we would normally do, which is bulb outs, on a street like this may not be feasible. We've done some of those pass-through bulb outs, and they've worked, but this may not be the street that we can do that either. What I understand of the trees causing damage, they are likely to continue to. They're not trees that are appropriate for street trees. They wouldn't be planted at this time.
And then last question is, I think you said the city's gotten some complaints about the 32-foot portion of the roadway. And it's my understanding that the vast majority of the streets in Albany are 30 feet, give or take. So it seems to me that, does the city see 30 feet as being kind of a limit on the narrowness of the street?
We wouldn't go below 30 feet without good reason. And we don't often rebuild streets, so and change their widths along entire corridors. So what I would say is generally we need at least 10-foot driving lanes. And if we want to preserve parking, we include another 7 feet on either side. So at that point, you're at 34 feet. That's what we're proposing here is a 34-foot wide. A lot of our 30-foot right-of-ways, you end up pulling into a driveway. Somebody passes and you continue on. It does create natural traffic calming as a side benefit. But we wouldn't want to do that on a kind of semi-collector that we're seeing here, especially not one as busy as a street next to a park.
Okay, thanks.
I'd emphasize traffic calming is not the same as driver calming situation.
That might be why we're getting complaints.
Kind of opposite. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
I had a question on the design considerations slide because it said one of the goals was to maintain drainage, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of drainage currently. Whenever it rains, there's a lot of puddling.
That's it. When I say maintain drainage here, we don't have a storm drain, an underground storm drain system. And so what I mean by that is that we have to make sure that water continue to go through the gutter in a way that doesn't make the puddles worse. Ideally, we would get rid of the puddles as part of this project, but actually we would be designing to get rid of the localized puddles that you're seeing along that block. But the reason for the puddles is actually the tree roots have been pushing up gutter.
Okay.
Could I ask a question? So when you make it like 2 feet further, is it going to be the same like length as the Albany High School one, or like if you like, is it straight, or does it go out more?
It would actually be straight. So let me go back to this slide here. So I didn't really cover this in great detail, so I'm glad you asked. This yellow line here is the existing curb. So at the driveway between the school and the ball field, the curb line actually extends outwards, southwards. And so what we would be doing is taking that south curb line and continuing it, but not adjusting the north curb line where it also does something similar.
All right. Seeing no more questions, we'll open for public comment. Anybody online raising their hand?
No hands online.
All right. Is there anybody observing online or?
No.
Okay, so I hide that fact. Okay, we'll bring it back for discussion. And really, you're looking for feedback and some direction very early. You can't really say what trees might be removed or not because it's much too early for that. But what do we think?
I just had a couple, that's a really good question. I'm looking at the street view. I still totally, can't quite wrap my head around how it's still a straight line, but I trust you. But one thing I'd say in terms, I think I appreciate the alternative 2A and the staff thought that went into that as a really nice creative solution. And I feel like it's in line with a lot of other sort of kind of taking back, the streets and giving more to the public to buy. So I really like that trend. I do think it would be great in terms of pitching this is to talk about aesthetic benefit, right? I don't know that that's really included there, but I do think like larger sidewalk and, more sort of space to walk, bigger tree wells is like an aesthetic benefit and a quality of life in and of itself. So I just want to say that I think that would be nice to include in there because in the sort of flow chart that you have. But I'd also say that I appreciate the emphasis on trying to keep the trees. I would say that those trees there, some of them are mature, but they are not large canopy. They're actually kind of spindly, and so I think that there's a way when, we had the street tree management plan. I'm sorry, that's the name of it, right? I always get that wrong. And there was that whole analysis of the canopy. And so that's an example. Those are several examples of 3 big mature trees with a very little canopy, not even much shade. So I would just say that as we think about planting there, and if we get this opportunity to plant trees, that it would be great to, especially when we need to replace them with trees that are going to have the full canopy. But so I guess my point is that I don't see, even if some of these trees have to be removed, some of them I don't think provide some of the benefits that we hope that they would because of the small shade availability of those canopies. So thank you. Those are just some comments I wanted to make. I don't have anything.
Who would next like to provide feedback?
I wanted to say thank you to the city for tackling this. It's been a real, problem for the city for many years, and just sort of shocking when you're used to such nice sidewalks and you come across this and it's like, wow. And, some kids are on it every day and all sorts of other folks. And it, definitely presents challenges with the trees and the roots and all of that. So I think we all appreciate the degree of difficulty here. I would say I agree with Commissioner Chang Frank that getting this right for the long time, like you said, lasting hopefully many years beyond these trees do, could require a complete redo of the trees or many of them, and I think that could serve the community going forward. As far as 1 versus 2 versus 2A, yeah, I think I would therefore avoid the weaving path of 1 and then I think you said 2 is kind of paving the whole area except for tree wells. Is that right?
2 would be paving something similar to Albany High School, but we still have an additional 10 feet of impervious area, potential planter area behind the sidewalk, between the sidewalk, 12-foot sidewalk, and the fence. So that will exist because that's within the park property. We're not planning to do the sidewalk going into the park property under any of these kind of range of ideas that we've presented tonight.
Oh, okay. So 2 would still be a really wide, or how many feet wide?
2 would be a 12-foot wide, 8-foot continuous passing area.
That
Plus,
still allows 10 feet of grass, basically, or planting area beyond
Correct.
that. Okay, so the fence is kind of 20-something feet from the curb?
approximately about 22 feet.
Okay. So, yeah, that seems like that could be a good way to go. 2A is the idea that it avoids hitting the line of more established trees closer to the fence?
It would be providing the largest continuous planting area for future trees. So it would be the 10 feet that's within the property plus an additional anywhere from 5 to 10 additional feet.
Okay, so there's already, and 2 would provide a 10-foot planting area,
Correct.
which is already bigger than any tree well we have anywhere. Okay. So yeah, that would be my inclination, would be to go for 2. 2 that doesn't mess with the street at all. It'd be cheaper for the city, I think, and less impact on traffic flows and whatever else. Unless there's is there a benefit to making the curb straight and making it a consistent 32 feet or whatever all the way down, or 34 feet?
So it wouldn't be consistent 32, it would be 34. So it would go from a 32 next to the street and widen out to 34. And the main reason is it tends to slow down traffic. This is a pretty heavily kind of pedestrian-used area. Lots of school kids getting dropped off. So it just slows down traffic a little bit. To be fair, though, during school drop-off, there's likely less speed. Where you see it maybe the most beneficial is actually going to be when there's no cars parked during off hours. It just narrows the street.
Yeah, it seems to me that would be a minor benefit, and just 2 is simpler and does the job. To me, that would be my recommendation.
Comments?
I think I like, the analysis is very good. I agree with the city's selection of 2A for the reasons mentioned. I think we have very few places we can put big trees here. We don't have any overhead utilities, planting next to a huge ballpark, which, as irrigation, I mean, it's a great place to maximize. And if it costs very little more to just, if you had a foot and a half more or so to extend it out, I'm for that. I am concerned, though, that there might be some hidden costs, like the couple lights there that I think are probably a foot and a half in off the curb, so if they'd have to be moved too, or they're gonna be in the middle of the walk.
So let me grab that concept plan layout. Again, this is concept plan. It might end up being 5 feet, 12 feet, as we're discussing right now, and there's any number of iterations in between. So it's more of a range again.
Yeah, I realize it's just a
Yeah.
concept, but just some things I was thinking.
Yeah,
There's
so
that funny utility down there. What's that utility box?
that's a gas regulator.
Could all of those boxes be undergrounded?
I don't believe so. Not easily and without great heartache.
But in principle, I'm for 2A.
So here's kind of the ideas around the tree wells. These are a little sharp, but essentially what's shown on, oh, it's not shown. Popping up? Interesting. Try again. Here we go. So we would be maintaining a 5-foot path around the streetlights by curving, is the idea. I do want to point out this is a survey marking. It is not oriented in the right direction. The streetlights actually head out over the roadway and over this the sidewalk. So it's actually at 90 degrees to what is shown in the plans.
I guess that's okay. I'm just worried about people on their phone walking down the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's
I have a clarifying question. Can you go back to that table again with the 3 alternatives? Because Commissioner Martin was saying something about how it's 2 is is the cheapest, but I thought it was the most expensive. So which one? I guess the middle one is the highest expected cost. What's the 2A?
2A is somewhere in the middle because it's being proposed as a 5-foot versus a 12-foot sidewalk, and there's no tree wells.
Okay, so it's in between 1 and 2.
Right.
Okay.
But going back to alternative 2, there's a way to do alternative 2 that's not a 12-foot sidewalk as well.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's how to reduce the cost there. Okay.
So for 2A, you'd have to, I think, change some of the roadbed, the gutter, and all that, and that ends up being, and then fill that space with whatever, building out the curb a few feet. So that's cheaper than just laying a few extra feet of width of sidewalk.
So alternative 2, the reason why that's not just the width of the sidewalk that it's expensive, it's also because we would have to rebuild the curb, and that's because of the vertical grading. Because of the amount of kind of up and down there, we may, if we're trying to preserve some of the trees that are further out within the ball field, between the back of sidewalk and the fence, we would be ramping up and down, and we have to tie that into the curb and gutter in a way that's reasonable. So with the amount of up and down we would have, potentially, the way the kind of initial estimates were was it's probably best to just take care of the curb and gutter at the same time. We haven't done detailed design to be able to really flesh that out, but in a range, this is likely to be the most expensive option at the high end and somewhere moderate on the low end, whereas alternative 2A is likely to be on the lower end of that. But at a certain point, it ends up being the same, functionally the same project. Functionally the same project in terms of costs. In terms of complexity with coordination, it is more for 2A.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I way is an obvious solution. It does maximize space in a way that significantly more than provides, and large tree, and they're already impinging. So use that space, and more options for large canopy tree when time comes. And my understanding is that apart from the 12 or the width of the side, it's really losing the tree wells is what allows 2A to be that, and push out. That's what really allows it to be more.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
That's why I call it an alternative 2A versus a third alternative. It's the same concept, just pulling it in a little bit more and
Right.
taking advantage of some roadway width.
So is that correct to say 2 has tree wells and it has the big trees by the fence, keeps those, or some of them anyway, but 2A has no tree wells, but it's further away from the fence?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's how, so the right-of-way that we're talking, when you said removing all the trees, that's in the right-of-way. We're never talking about removing all the trees, even the ones right near the fence, right? Those are school or park property or whatever.
So it's hard to
It's hard to say for sure, of course.
Yes, because without kind of starting to see some of the root structure and getting in the grading, it's hard for me to say with certainty what's going to happen. But that's part of why hearing these comments, so that we kind of have a design, it helps us make design decisions.
Right.
To understand what the priorities are.
Okay, well, hearing some of that discussion, I think, has me leaning a little more towards 2A, since it gets rid of the tree wells, which I think are really less needed, given that you have this 10 feet or whatever it is beyond the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the fence, or even more than that if it's only a 5-foot sidewalk and you move 2 of it into the street or something. And so that would make me lean more towards 2A, that just keep the sidewalk near the curb and then have this huge planting area between the sidewalk and the fence, and then I don't have any tree wells. That sounds the better option to me.
Currently, I mean, when I was walking my dog through here, it's kind of like a park. And so I think that obviously 1 preserves that to some degree, but I also think 2A does, because there's enough space there. You could get off the trail and beyond, go through the woods, trees, and then poop and go home, which is what you always do, but not me, but I would pick it up. But I think that's very nice. I think that's it's basically a small park.
Yeah.
At that point, which I don't think you get with 2. I think 2, you get a sidewalk.
And going back to aesthetics, it would be more of a kind of a boulevard feel versus a park feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick question about alternative 1. Like, would there need to be like sizable like removal of trees? Like specifically, I think there's like the pine on like very close to Pomona that has like giant roots that are definitely like at least like 4 inches tall or something. So I was just wondering, like, would that need to be removed? Because I don't know, alternative 1 doesn't really seem very favorable.
So there would be tree removals likely in all of these
Yeah, but like
various ones.
this one would be on the south side, I guess, of said path, right?
So there would likely be both tree removals and tree trim, like root trimming, and then some of those, when they get more aggressive, we either, based on feedback from John Hawkridge, our city forester, we think it may survive, and some of them we don't. We think it might survive, we sometimes leave it with some significant root trimming and see how it does. It is a risk to the city to try to preserve some of these trees near paths, because we have to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
It's a balancing act. But yes, you're right. There would be tree removals in that case as well, and potentially similar number, depending on how those tree root flares actually look in reality.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't really support alternative 1, I think, but yeah.
I have a question. So why is alternative 2 better for visual impairment than alternative 2A?
Oh, back to that. So this is alternative 2 here. Alternative 2, what it does is it kind of creates more of a standard sidewalk configuration, where the path of travel doesn't have to deviate from a straight path at all. throughout the entire sidewalk area. So you would be coming in here, and once you get past this first tree well in what we call the furniture zone or the furnishing zone, essentially at that point, you have a straight way.
So is 2A not straight?
2A would not be fully straight. We would be weaving around some utilities that would otherwise be in a furnishing zone. So, for example, over here, let's see if I can get in. Over here, there's some street lights, signs. There's a little box here. This is a water meter and a irrigation box. It's a vertical, it's like 2 feet tall. You could essentially continue on straight through that area. But in alternative 2A for that same location, we would have to kind of adjust the path around it. And so here's that same meter box. We would be bringing the path next to the curb and a widening out here where there's an entrance to the ball field, and we would naturally be seeing more people anyways. But there would, in order to avoid constrictions here, you would have to, as a person would have to kind of deviate from their straight path to get around.
And then students, youth are legally allowed to ride bicycles on sidewalks, so something like that would be like a hazard in the middle of the sidewalk and would need to be marked and padded and whatever else, wouldn't it, or something?
I wouldn't say that's kind of a requirement anywhere that's high enough that it's visible. This is not something that's not visible, and we generally don't have the same traffic safety requirements on a sidewalk where it's expected to be a pedestrian zone that we have in a roadway. So we don't pad every vertical box around the city in a sidewalk just because students can ride bikes on it.
Mm-hmm. There's some next to FDA, but is that where the bike path is?
Correct. So that's a bike facility. It's considered vehicular traffic
Okay.
to a great degree. And you expect to be riding much faster on a dedicated bikeway. But that's something we would be looking at in detailed design to see if there's any need for it. Again, this is supposed to be a pedestrian zone that children are allowed to ride safely on.
Mm-hmm.
Advantage that it would slow that traffic potentially.
Yeah. But also if it's dark, though, you don't want to have that surprise people.
I would just say there are boxes like that all over the sidewalks. But yeah, they're not, it's not unusual.
Well, there's some that are like up to here, like the telecommunications one, but something that's knee-high, that's going to be a little different.
Okay. Other comments? I hope we've given you some feedback. We like trees. We like space for trees. Okay. Well, man, a few words. All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I hope you got what you needed.
So what is your recommendation?
Oh, do we recommendation? Oh, that we, it's actually an item. Okay. Recommendation, do we feel comfortable recommending pursuit of 2A? Is that
You have a motion for 2A?
Sure.
one? Okay, so
I'll move to recommend 2A.
okay.
Second?
Okay. Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Trinkle?
Yes.
And Chair Abbott?
Yes.
Thank
you very
you.
much, and thanks for your work. And I know a lot of work goes into something, creating, especially like 2A, thinking outside the box or out of your lane or something. I'm not sure works there, but it's good. It's good.
And thanks to the city for tackling this tricky problem.
I'm a little disappointed because I always wanted that to be our test area for sidewalk surface. Because there's a natural need for it. All right, very good. All right, 5-2, election of officers. Commission will nominate and elect chair and vice chair 2026. So I think we do chair first, and folks can nominate themselves or be nominated.
Yep. I think it's
And I
chair
believe
first.
once somebody's name is said, they can't say no, is that right? That's what I remember. That's what they told me, what?
Who's our vice chair?
I don't even know. Is it on the, I think you've been at almost all the, pretty much all the meetings, haven't you?
Me? Yeah, I don't think it was. The one I would have missed, it was postponed.
Yeah, I think you, yeah.
It doesn't say on our list.
Anyway,
I was vice chair.
it doesn't mean that you automatically bump
I
up.
served last year, so I'm
Pretty sure it's not me.
Um,
Or was it Hillary?
Was it Hillary?
I don't know. Commissioner Sardinius, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think we'd know something like that. All right. Who,
Hillary's not continuing?
Yeah, it could be.
No, Hillary resigned.
down? I'm seeing not a lot of enthusiasm. Anybody, I was hoping Julie would step up. It's going to be a no.
Better than that now.
It's going to be a no. I know attendance has been an issue for you as well,
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
you know.
And you can re-up if you, right? I mean, others can re-up, but even if
I'm
they've
fine.
served
I mean, if
recently.
nobody else wants to do it, I'm fine doing it. But I also like giving other people opportunities.
We've all done it, so it's fine if you.
Ready?
I have to go to college later.
We all have lives.
Well, you, and you're in college right now, right? No.
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
you'll be around.
Oh, hey.
We're not going to pressure you into anything, but the door's open if you're interested.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
I nominate Chair Abbott to re-up.
I second.
I said,
All right. Commissioner Chan,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Trinkle,
Yes.
and Chair Abbott.
Okay.
Chair Abbott is Chair Abbott.
Okay.
And for a vice president,
Chair.
Vice Chair.
vice chair.
Can you nominate,
Motion.
can you nominate the vacant chair?
The,
Do we have somebody,
should do,
I don't think so.
No.
Mayor McQuaid was here, and that's her position.
She'll work. It's hard to find people.
I got a couple, I should email her some suggestions.
Yeah.
Anyone want to nominate themselves for vice chair?
Not very. I don't miss often. I'll say that.
I will nominate myself for Vice Chair.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone second that?
I second.
All right. Commissioner Chan,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Trinkle,
Yes.
and Chair Abbott.
Yes.
All right. Vice
Come to it.
Chair Brian Martin.
Okay.
Okay.
One heartbeat
This one I
away.
wish to withdraw as. No. All right. Subcommittee updates. We do not currently have any subcommittees, I don't think. Announcements. Any announcements from the city?
I have no announcement.
No announcements. Do I have any announcements? Any announcements?
We do have an
We have an
announcement.
announcement.
Okay.
Actually, why don't, well, I could do it. Make sure I get all the details. So we're planning a projects expo, planning projects expo, like community meeting. It would be the 22nd. Information is going to come out in this week's news, e-news. We're looking at two different things. The ATP, so there's going to be some consultants and our staff on hand, as well as the watershed management plan. And for the watershed management plan, we're looking for feedback and where there are issues within the city of flooding, especially now that it's all fresh in everyone's mind and your socks are still wet and whatnot. So that's going to happen at the community center. Keep up for, what is it, 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock, and that's going to be the community center. Look out for details in e-news and the websites and so forth.
So where do we ask people not to send the e-news on a Friday afternoon? That's like the worst time to send something like that out.
Well,
Folks know that, right?
I
I think I've mentioned this before. I know you're not the ones to talk to, but you're the only ones here. All right.
January 22nd.
January 22nd,
January
is that right?
22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe this will take place, will happen in place of the Transportation Commission.
Oh, okay.
That's the proposal. This was primarily focused on the ATP initially, but then we looked at bootstrapping the watershed management plan, similar to what
good.
we did about a year ago.
Just want to make a quick correction.
Oh.
It is January 22nd, but it looks like it's going to be 5:30 to 7:30.
Oh.
So I don't want you to miss it.
Yes, I stand corrected.
Where's it taking place?
Community Center.
Community Center.
I can announce that there will be a Lunar New Year celebration this year. We weren't sure because the location kind of went away, but it will be a church on the corner, so that's good. Not quite sure the date yet, but usually it's around Super Bowl Sunday. At a church, it won't be Sunday. But yeah. Cool. All right, moving on then. I think we can adjourn this meeting. We can begin next Friday with our new leadership team.
I do have just
Another announcement?
thoughts on a future
Oh,
agenda.
Yeah, yeah.
So we will, so there's a couple of things in the mix, but we will have an update on Prop 68 projects, and if I can get my act together, we'll do something on park maintenance.
Okay.
But there's potentially some other things, but Prop 68 will be the main event.
Very interesting. Look forward to that.
And then I think I saw in a city council meeting that the funding was approved, I think, for volleyball siting.
Yes, so it is, so it's a sort of a supplement to the Parks Master Plan, looking at siting of volleyball as well as other things, just so we get a broader community input. That will be run through our, this commission. We've signed the contract and we haven't kicked it off yet. So once that schedule is established, we'll let you know, and that's going to be obviously run through here.
Okay,
That's on the horizon.
okay, great.
Great. We'll again adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye.